Field Hospital 7, outside Hanover, Germany. April 1945. British Lieutenant Robert Kane pushes through the hospital door expecting wounded German soldiers. Instead, he finds 43 people dying of typhus. And one nurse, standing in the center of the ward, hands covered in blood and filth, who looks at him and says in perfect English, "Just shoot me. It will be faster than this." She's 29 years old. Her name is Margarete Fischer, and she's been treating patients alone for 6 days after the Wehrmacht abandoned the hospital. No supplies, no clean water, no hope. Kane stares at her. Then he does something his orders never prepared him for. He takes off his jacket, rolls up his sleeves, and says, "Show me how to help." The Wehrmacht retreated 4 days ago, told the medical staff to evacuate, leave the sick, burn the records. Most obeyed. 3 doctors fled, 8 nurses followed. Margarete stayed. So did 2 orderlies, both too old to fight, too stubborn to run. Typhus doesn't care about politics. It spreads through lice, through unwashed bodies, through overcrowding and filth. The hospital had 60 patients when the retreat began. 17 died waiting for evacuation that never came. The remaining 43 are at various stages of dying: high fever, delirium, internal bleeding. Margarete has been changing bandages with torn sheets, boiling contaminated water because it's the only water available, rationing morphine like it's worth more than gold. Because it is. When Kane's patrol found the hospital, he expected resistance. Maybe snipers. Maybe booby traps. Not this. Not one exhausted woman standing in a tomb pretending to be a hospital. "You're British," Margarete says. "It's not a question." "I am." "Then shoot me or arrest me. But stop wasting my time. These people are dying." Kane looks around the ward. Sees German soldiers, yes, but also sees a French forced laborer, 16 years old, 2 British prisoners of war, captured at Arnhem, a Polish woman, pregnant, barely conscious, Russian soldiers, still in their tattered uniforms. "You've been treating everyone," Kane says slowly. "I'm a nurse. That's what nurses do." "Your own command abandoned you." "Yes." "Why didn't you leave?" Margarete looks at him like he's asked why water is wet. "Because they're still people. And I'm still a nurse. The war doesn't change that." And Kane makes a decision that will either get him court-martialed or decorated. He's not sure which. He keys his radio. "Command, this is Kane. I need immediate medical evacuation. 43 critical patients. Mixed nationality. Requesting field hospital support." The radio crackles. "Repeat, Lieutenant. Did you say German patients?" "I said patients. Send the medics." He turns back to Margarete. "Show me what needs to be done until they arrive." For the next 4 hours, a British combat officer and a German nurse work side by side. Kane has basic field medical training. He can stop bleeding, stabilize wounds, administer morphine. He's never dealt with typhus, never treated disease on this scale. Margarete teaches him, "Don't touch your face. The lice carry the infection." This one, see how his fever is breaking? Good sign, but watch for relapse. We're out of clean bandages. Boil these in that pot for 10 minutes. It's not sterile, but it's better than nothing. They work through the smell, feces, infection, death. Through the sounds, groaning, crying, delirious shouting in 3 languages. Private Davies from Kane's patrol stands in the doorway, watching his lieutenant take orders from a German nurse. "Sir," he finally says, are we supposed to—" "We're supposed to be human, Davies. Help or leave." Davies helps. When the British medical team arrives, 2 doctors, 6 nurses, a truck full of supplies, they find Kane and Margarete working on a British POW together. The head medic, Major Patterson, takes one look at the scene and says, "Someone want to explain this?" "Typhus outbreak," Kane says, not looking up. 43 patients, mixed casualties. This is Nurse Fischer. She's been holding this hospital together alone. We need penicillin, saline, and at least 3 days of quarantine protocol. Patterson looks at Margarete. You're German. Yes. You stayed. Yes. Why? She gives the same answer she gave Kane. Because I'm a nurse. Patterson nods once. Then you're on my team until we stabilize these patients. Catch her up on what we have, Kane. Of the 43 patients, 37 survive. The 6 who die are buried with military honors. German, British, French, Russian, Polish, side by side in the hospital courtyard. Margarete Fischer is officially classified as surrendered medical personnel under Geneva protections, which is Army speak for she's not a prisoner, she's a colleague. She continues working at the field hospital for 3 months, teaching British medics about diseases they've never encountered, learning new techniques from them. Kane visits when his patrol rotates through. One day he asks her, "Did you mean it when you said to shoot you?" She thinks about it. Yes, at that moment I thought death would be easier than watching them all die while I failed to save them. But you didn't fail? I didn't save them alone. You chose to help instead of arrest. That choice saved more lives than my medicine ever could. Kane doesn't know what to say to that. What will you do after the war? He asks instead. Keep being a nurse. It's all I know how to be. She pauses. Maybe that's enough. Maybe in a world that forgot how to care, just continuing to care is the most radical thing we can do. Margarete Fischer worked for the British Army Medical Corps until 1947, then for the World Health Organization, then UNICEF. She spent 40 years in hospitals, refugee camps, disaster zones, anywhere people needed someone who remembered they were human first and patients second. She died in 1989 in a hospital in Geneva, surrounded by former students who had become doctors because of her. Her obituary mentioned nothing about Field Hospital 7, nothing about the 43 patients or the British lieutenant who chose to help instead of arrest. It simply said, "She taught us that medicine has no borders." Lieutenant Robert Kane carried the memory of that hospital his entire life. In 1978, he gave a speech at a military academy. I was trained to secure buildings, eliminate threats, follow objectives. I was never trained to take orders from the enemy. But sometimes the right choice isn't the one in the manual. It's the one that reminds you why you're fighting, not to destroy, but to preserve the possibility that humanity can survive our worst impulses. 40 people lived because 2 people, enemies by flag, colleagues by conscience, decided that sickness has no nationality and dying patients have no allegiance except to survival. When Margarete said, "Just shoot me," she was surrendering to despair. When Kane said, "Show me how to help," he was surrendering to something deeper, the understanding that some obligations transcend orders. War creates enemies, but hospitals create something else. They create witnesses to suffering. And once you witness suffering, you can choose to look away, or you can choose to act. Kane chose to act. Not because it was strategic, not because it was ordered, because 43 people were dying, and 1 woman was trying to save them, and that was enough. If this story changed how you think about who deserves help, share it. Because the most dangerous question isn't, should we help our enemies? It's, can we afford to become the kind of people who don't? Thank you for watching.